Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and television discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Keenan.
God didn't save you, Heidi did.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear without fear.
Oh, and none of us were fearful to go after the second half of Daredevil Season 3.
Ooh.
Man, oh man, dude, we have a program in here for you because I hate to hear the news supposedly that all the ratings are down for everybody, including this show. But we'll talk a little bit more about maybe why that is or why all the other stuff is.
Let's get into that. We'll kick that can down the road because I have a massive theory about that.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, I want to hear this.
Now,
I have no theories.
Before we get into that, though, we do want to say, hey, it's a brand new month here, and we do want to say thank you and oh my gosh, to everybody that goes over to patreon.com/HMP and joins in all of the fun and excitement. It is because of you guys that this show keeps on going week after week. And of course, as always, you can vote on what we actually end up covering on this program. And we've got a couple of things that are going on right now. And we are only, I forgot to bring it up before we started the show here, but we are actually only one vote separates the movie that we're watching later on this month. Now, we still have like 3 weeks with which to, still work from here, but, everyone's votes count. So head on over to patreon.com/HMP, join the fun, and, vote, man. Oh, and I'm implementing something else, by the way. Anyone, just to give it out for the rest of the year, anyone that joins in at patreon.com/HMP, you'll be able to get the free show. Everything is available to everybody until the rest of the year. So if you want to jump in at even $1, see if it's worth it, see if it's something that you might enjoy doing, it's all going to be there for you. Now, come the new year, we're going back to the regular thing. But right now, as our gift to you, everybody is in. If you're at $1 or more, come on in, man. We'd really appreciate that. And we'll talk about the standings for those votes and stuff a little bit more towards the end of the show. But let's get on into it, everybody. We've got Daredevil Season 3. This is going to be the 7th through 13th episode here. And I'm not going to worry about playing the trailer or anything because...
Don't bother.
Because I think we already know what it's about. It's about Daredevil. But we do have to do this, though. Ooh, boy. Let's see what he's got this week.
Karen Page showed up in the very first issue of Daredevil. In that first issue, she's the secretary for the law firm Nelson and Murdoch, seemingly the only job a comic book woman could have in 1964. Now, Stan Lee's stories had her as the mutual love interest of both Matt Murdock and his partner, Foggy Nelson. Of course, Matt Murdock won out, and the two began what I will call the most destructive relationship in all of comics, or at least the most destructive for Karen Page. Daredevil reveals his identity to Karen, and things pretty much go straight down the crapper for Miss Page from that point onward. After a long and difficult breakup, Karen Page gives up being a secretary in order to pursue a career as an actress, a pursuit that sadly goes as dismally as everything else in poor Karen's life. Karen's story starts in the small town of Fagin Corners, Vermont, where she has a poor relationship with her father, Dr. Paxton Page. Just how poor was her relationship, one may ask? Well, her father faked his own kidnapping and death so that he could become the supervillain Death's Head. So I'd say pretty darn poor. It is, in fact, the aftermath of a battle between Daredevil and Death's Head that Daredevil reveals his true identity to Karen, and that is ultimately the undoing of the relationship. It drives Karen straight to crazy world, to the very crazy world of soap opera acting. Karen moves on from soap operas to star in a movie alongside Hollywood Daredevil. You see what I did there? Mm-hmm. Johnny Blaze. And she finds it just so refreshing to work alongside Johnny Blaze because he's a man with no secrets, right? Well, Karen Page has offered a role on the Incredible Hulk TV show because, this storyline happened during the first season of the classic Incredible Hulk TV show on CBS. So it's a little meta stuff going on in the comics. But before she can get her first kiss from Bill Bixby, she's kidnapped by 3 ex-stuntmen on the show but she's saved by the Thing, who's in Hollywood trying to get his own TV show, as well as the Hulk, who's mostly annoyed at having a show about him. Next thing you know, the Hollywood lifestyle is too much for the small town girl, and she becomes and she starts dirty movies because comics really wanted to let people know they weren't just for kids then. In need of a fix, she sells Daredevil's secret identity to a drug dealer who in turn sells it to the Kingpin and sets in motion the story of Born Again that has been adapted into this show. Karen is forced to return to New York, where she meets up again with Matt. He helps Karen beat her addiction, and they resume the relationship, probably not a good thing for either of them, and they start cohabitating in a New York apartment. Karen founds a free drug and legal clinic because that's a combination that goes together even better than peanut butter and jelly. During a demonic invasion of Manhattan, Karen discovers that Matt has been having an affair with Typhoid Mary, who we got to see in Iron Fist Season 2, if I'm remembering correctly. And these combined blows, the demons and the infidelity, leave Karen psychologically lost, and she runs away. Later on, she becomes an anti-pornography activist as well as a radio show host under the name Paige Angel. She eventually realizes that she's too dependent on Matt and that her past is a constant barrier between the two of them. So Karen leaves Matt to accept a talk show host position in Los Angeles. While in California, Karen has a routine blood test as part of an insurance policy application. This is where the supervillain Mysterio gets involved. Part of his plan to psychologically destroy Daredevil also involves tearing down Karen Page. So he disguises himself as a doctor, performs the blood test, and tells her that she's HIV positive, a dirty trick that comics would only be insensitive enough to play in the 80s. Devastated, Karen returns to New York and tells Matt that she is HIV positive, and later, during a fight between Daredevil and Bullseye, Karen is murdered by Bullseye when she moves to intercept a billy club thrown at Daredevil's head and is impaled in the heart. Matt is so devastated by Karen's death that he briefly contemplates suicide, but is given new strength to keep going when he remembers some of their times together, most of which involved Matt treating Karen like a doormat. Now, Matt attempts and fails to give Karen's eulogy, finding himself overwhelmed at the memory of her loss. Matt takes an infant he saved to its new family because you got to remember the rule in comic books is if you find a baby, you get to do it. Bring the little diaper dandy over to a couple in New Jersey. He names her Karen and hopes that her new parents will allow the occasional visit from her Uncle Matt. I, on the other hand, hope that baby never gets within 100 miles of Daredevil because ruining one Karen's life should be enough for the man without fear or scruples.
Yeah, things didn't go well for Karen in the comics.
Yeah,
she's honestly a heartbreaking character, man. There's all the characters I can think of.
With Daredevil for years and years and years, it was just like downer after downer after downer. Like they kicked that guy in the nuts over and over and over again for years and years and years, for like 20 years. Because after Frank Miller gets a hold of him, then everybody goes, oh, you know what? That's what we can do. We can torture this guy and all of his supporting cast. And so for years, like I just stayed clear of it because it just kept coming and coming and coming. And then it got to a point where it was almost funny, just all the bad stuff that kept happening to him. And when it comes to the HIV stuff, with the twist there that Mysterio is the doctor, I mean, that is about the most hilarious thing in the world.
And I also like some of the editorial argument that those years and years of kicking Matt while he was down was all just a setup to make the reader believe that he would become the character he is in Shadowlands. And I say, oh, so you spent like 15 years setting up for one of the worst story arcs in comic book history.
That's what you call the long con.
Definitely.
So I realized something watching the second half. Because the first half is all set up, and it's a good reason, it's with very good payoff, because the second half of Daredevil season 3 is amazing. And I'm going to really put it out there. This is the best season of a television show I've ever seen. Of a superhero television show I've ever seen. There's
Wow.
nothing that even comes remotely close to this.
I think season 1 of Daredevil and season 1 of Jessica Jones come close. And I'll save my full feelings for the end, but yeah.
I mean, season 2 of Daredevil is good. Season 1 of Daredevil, remember, there's a big chunk in the middle where you can basically fast forward through it. And the same thing with Jessica Jones. Like Jessica Jones season 1, I love Purple Man. I love the character Jessica Jones. I love that character, and I love everything about Jessica Jones season 1. But when there's all those twists and turns, remember in the middle where it's like, oh, now she has to save the Purple Man and get the Purple Man out of jail and all of that garbage, like that stuff, it starts to grate on you. Whereas there isn't a part in this season, for me anyway, where I'm like, wow, this storyline's going on too long.
Well, one thing that I'll definitely agree with you, no questions asked, is this is the first good season of a Netflix Marvel show in quite some time.
Yeah. And here is my crackpot theory, because we kind of touched on it earlier, because viewership is down, is that they got too big too fast, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the people who made the first, that first arc of Marvel shows, Daredevil season 1, Jessica Jones season 1, even Luke Cage season 1, even though we didn't like the second half of that, those people then split off and they start making more and more of these shows. And once you start doing that, then you are distilling the water. You're making it a weaker mix.
And it's one of those things that we looked at several times when, I mean, obviously for like Stallone connections and just, general perusing and stuff, so many people were involved in, the same shows and stuff. It's just like there was only so much that you could do and spread people, I think, so thin that, something was bound to suffer at some point.
Well, you start running out of new ideas. You start running out of just fresh concepts, and most of all, everything looks the same after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think just the amount of content that's out now, like I talk to people who are still working their way through Punisher, and they're trying to watch everything in order. So, there's a lot of people that will be watching this maybe 6 months from now, but by then it will have been declared a failure,
Oh, I think that's one of the biggest problems.
Which is a massive mistake, because in 10 years' time, everyone's going to be looking back at Daredevil season 3 as one of the best things that ever happened to superhero TV.
And I don't know that they've released other numbers, because Netflix holds their numbers close to their vest. But after people were kind of talking crummy about Netflix for canceling Luke Cage, they basically said season 2 of Luke Cage lost 66% of its viewership compared to season 1. And I think some of that's just there's so much to watch now that, people are making their way to it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And I talk to people about this all the time, is that, like, have you ever had a time where you're just like, hey, let's sit down and watch something? You pull up Netflix and you spend a good 45 minutes flipping through trying to find the thing that you want, only to eventually probably just go like, you know what, I'm going to sleep or whatever, we live in a time of super oversaturation of everything. It'd be nice if we go back to the, like, hey, you got to go to the video store, rent it, come home, watch it, and turn it back in before you start getting late fees.
No, I will never go back to that. Never.
I'm telling you, you would enjoy things a lot more. It sounds ridiculous, but you would.
I might be the rare guy. I don't even turn Netflix. I don't activate the Netflix app without already specifically knowing what I'm going to watch.
Yeah, that's
and I'm the kind of guy.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bruce.
I pay for Netflix year round just so I can watch. When the Marvel stuff drops, I watch that. Whenever a new Stranger Things drops, I watch that. If something gets a little buzz, I might check it out. But for the most part, I don't turn on Netflix to peruse and try to find something to watch. I know what I want to watch when I turn Netflix on.
You are not normal.
That's me with TV, period. I don't just turn on the TV to have it on. I'm literally watching something to watch something.
Yeah, I mean, that extends beyond Netflix, too. I agree with you there. Like, my TV, I don't just channel surf like I used to do in the 90s.
Right.
I do. No, I don't. No one does. No one does it like that anymore. Hey, look,
and I mean, there's
great
drawbacks to that, too,
sure,
because I'm not the guy who's going to discover a quaint little something that's before it's a big hit either. I mean, I have to hear I have to have a reason to watch something. I don't just try stuff out because it looks interesting. So I'm probably missing out on some things because of that. But it's just, my time is kind of regimented throughout the day.
Yeah, mine too.
So last we left Daredevil season 3, man, the paper got beat up but good. How many people died in that thing?
Plenty, man. Plenty. We start off with the fallout from the fake Daredevil attack. And, the media immediately turns on Daredevil because the guy's got the Daredevil costume, even though they don't look that much alike. But then again, in the dark, in a Daredevil costume, how much do you really see of the guy,
Yeah, just
and I want to bring this up is that when they first put that guy in the suit, and there's something off about that actor, period. He's probably the nicest guy in the world, and I'm sure he's a very, very handsome man outside of your camera screen. But there's something off about him, like physically there's something off about him. And so it struck me as wrong when you just see him in a regular suit, but when he's in the Daredevil suit, it works so well because there is something completely off about having that guy in the suit. He doesn't move in any way like Charlie Cox does in that suit.
I know I think it works really well too.
That's what I'm saying, is that the casting of Bullseye is so spot on in this because there is something off about him when you look at him, where you're like, oh, that guy, there's something not right about that guy, and I don't know if it's from performance or the actor himself. I don't know what either or. Maybe it's like hiring Keanu Reeves for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where it's just perfect casting.
Yeah.
But I think that having him in that role lends itself to the show so much because you as a viewer watching it, I never wonder, oh, is that Matt in the suit? Never, not one time did I think that.
And it also gives a little payoff. I was a little bummed that Matt went back to the black suit, to the Daredevil year 1 suit is what I call it from the comics. But then it kind of makes sense because we don't need 2 guys in Daredevil suits fighting each other, right?
No, and it makes it makes it totally uninteresting to me.
Yeah, and it almost has the feel of like Rocky 4, where Ivan Drago's shooting up with the steroids and using the high tech stuff, and meanwhile Rocky's out there climbing up the side of a hill with rocks in his pockets and stuff like that. Like it kind of has the gristle and bone of the raw Matt Murdock Daredevil against the slick Daredevil, Bullseye version of Daredevil that can throw all the little implements and do the ranged fighting.
But the nice little thing, too, though, about that secondary costume and everything is that it is different than the one that we saw in season 1 and everything, because you got the little white liner underneath and, of course, the Muay Thai ropes and stuff that he has later and everything.
And that, in the later part of this season, when he starts tying those ropes around his hands, makes his fists just look huge. That is Frank Miller art come to life, better than I've ever seen.
It's so good. I love it. When I'm sitting there going, I'm just smiling with glee when he starts putting that out. I'm just like, this is Frank Miller as it gets, boys. Look at these giant hands he's made for himself.
It makes, I just wish he had like some high top tennis shoes on instead of the shoes he's wearing. But man, the ropes around his fist don't make that much practical sense, and somebody can argue with me how it does. I'm not going to listen to that argument. I'm just going to say the aesthetics to the longtime comic book fan. It is such a joy to see him lean into some of these absurdities, and I love it.
Yeah, I also like that it's not another nice touch, and I'm sure it's just because of legal reasons. Is I like the fact that the bulletin is not the bugle. The bulletin. Yeah. There's something more not comic booky about the bulletin.
Anybody who's lived in the big cities are familiar with the indie papers that are around, and they're always trying to scrape by, and it's kind of a romantic notion that those papers still exist. So I think that it's cool. I think it's very cool.
Says you say that on the exact weekend, one of the free papers here in town just got shut down after 31 years of service. They waited till they
got shut down?
Creative Loafing. They went to print like Thursday or whatever, and then they were like, guess what, everybody? This company is no longer, everybody's fired, no severance, no nothing, get out, we're done.
Now how are people going to find their sketchy massage parlors?
Back of Craigslist.
Who's going to just absurdly pick Charlotte's Best Comedian every year?
Oh, who knows? It's still online. They're still doing an online version,
okay.
So
but,
somebody will get a dubious title for sure.
Now, another question I have about Bullseye and the Daredevil costume. One cool aspect about that face mask was that it was like a whole solid plate because it didn't need eye openings for Matt. And when this actor, playing Bullseye is wearing the face mask, it also kind of has that look, and I don't know, maybe it has eye holes and they CGI'd over it or something like that, but it's kind of made me wonder, like, Bullseye really needs his eyesight, and this mask still looks like the kind that would not allow for you to see through.
There's only one shot towards the end that kind of made them look a little bit transparent or translucent, whichever you'd like. But there was one that was like towards the end that you could really see it. But otherwise, you're right. Because I thought that same thing. I'm like, why would Matt have any lenses in there? It doesn't make a lot of sense. But then again, he did have, what's his nose, make it for him. So he probably said, hey, yeah, by the by, can you put eye holes in that? That'd be awesome.
Well, it does bring up the opportunity to bring one of my favorite characters back into the show from season 1, and that's Melvin Potter, a.k.a. Gladiator.
I like how he reaches for the saw blades and everything a couple of times. Again,
I know.
Nice little hat tips. When you do stuff like that, you don't have to go over the top and do everything 1,000% comics. But every now and then, if you just tip your hat to people and just go like, "I see you, fam. We over here. We got you," and like that's all we need.
And I also like it that Melvin Potter is in a relationship with his parole officer, because Melvin Potter always comes off as such a sad sack that even though it's a absolutely illegal and unhealthy relationship, I'm glad he's got somebody.
And you got to think he's getting out pretty easily here if the FBI is all on the take.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. I think it's one of those things that they didn't have to put in there. Like, there's no reason. It doesn't really contribute much to the story later on. But it's kind of a nice touch, and it makes the world feel a little more real,
Yeah, but they do that all the time on this show, where
You're right.
there's a bunch of stuff that they don't have to do, but they do it, and that's what makes the show so great.
I don't know, man. I kind of wanted Melvin to maybe make Matt like a new and improved Daredevil suit for the final 5, but I'm glad they didn't go with that, because I love the ropes and the throwback by the time we get to the end.
I don't think we're going to see Daredevil at least like this again. Do you? I don't.
I don't know that we're going to see another season of Daredevil.
Yeah, I don't believe we will.
I mean, I heard that there's something that's in production right now, but I don't know. Punisher season 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be the last Marvel Netflix show we get the way things are going. Should we talk about that now before we move on, or just
let's do it. Let's do it.
I know you said you had a bit of a conspiracy theory on it. Have we covered? I mean, is there anything we haven't already touched on or anything else to say about it that I just feel like this was something that, strangely, the cinematic universe is going stronger than ever, but this Netflix universe is just, I feel like it's dying on the vine. Some of it is creative's fault. Some of it is not creative's fault.
If I could, because I'm gonna start in with my crackpot theory with this. It's a theory, but it's a crackpot one.
Please.
You know how when Fantastic Four and X-Men, Marvel didn't own those movies, and so they basically said, hey, we're not going to publish any Fantastic Four comic books anymore. And they didn't for a very long time. And the reason why, I'm guessing, if you can just read between the lines, is because they didn't want to give who owns that? Is it Sony who owns
Fox?
Fantastic
No,
Four?
That's Fox, man.
Fox.
So they just started a new Fantastic Four comic 2 months ago because it looks like they're going to get Fox.
Right. And so on purpose they tanked because they didn't want Fox to get more ideas from their comic books. So my crackpot theory on this is Marvel Netflix took a dive on purpose because they are looking to move to another thing here, because it's going to be Marvel, right? It's a Marvel Direct that we're getting here.
I thought they were just going to do a massive Disney Direct.
Yeah, I think it's
Disney,
just
Marvel,
it's just
and
gonna,
Star Wars.
Yeah, just a Disney thing, and once 20th Century Fox gets thrown in there, they'll add that layer as well.
The thing is, once 20th Century Fox gets thrown in there, they own Hulu, and what I've heard is they're going to put a new badge on Hulu and call it Disney Unlimited.
I
something
think
like that.
I'm behind that. I think that's the move that they could possibly make because they've already got a fantastic install base right there, and not much will change for the rest of the end users and everything. But you start funneling the money back into your pocket. So to me, I'm just like, if you're doing anything else other than that, I see that as a giant mistake. But they know better than me, I'm sure.
And I wonder if they're going to edge the other properties off of Hulu, and that's going to open up a Comcast streaming service for TV stuff.
Oh, wow.
Oh, please don't do things like that. Don't do stuff. Just keep the things that you got and just go like, hey, thank heavens we got all this cool stuff now. Call
it Disney Plus because it has Disney Plus this other stuff.
Not a bad idea.
Disney presents Hulu.
But that's where they're going to put that Mandalorian show. That's where they'll put any Marvel streaming. All the Marvel movies will go there instead of other streaming services.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't giving DC Unlimited a whole lot of credit, but they really have a nice template that Disney can do better. Where they don't show every single Warner Brothers superhero movie on there at the same time, but like this month they'll have Batman Begins and maybe The Dark Knight and maybe the original Christopher Reeve Superman. The next month they'll rotate some other stuff through. They're not putting everything on there every month. That way you kind of want to stay subscribed instead of just joining for a month, binging and quitting.
DC Direct, Well, we might need to talk about that next week. Ooh, teaser.
But they didn't tank. But they didn't tank on Daredevil season 3 because they gave it their all on this season. So I that fights against the tanking theory. Other than they're just so proud of this product that they want to go out on a high note instead of, you know what I mean?
Well, I think that probably, my guess is that this and Punisher season 2 is probably the last two things that'll be on Netflix, right? And so. Yeah. If you go out with a bang, no one is ever going to remember how terrible Iron Fist was. Like no one's going to talk about how terrible Iron Fist was.
And I'm also curious if there'll be, this thing we read in the news in about a year where Disney pays Netflix a bunch of money and gets all their shows back for their new service.
Could be that too. They have the money to do whatever they want to now.
Yep. But back to this show, man. Melvin Potter gets visited. He offers to make Daredevil a new suit. Daredevil doesn't want it. Things go sideways. And while a lot of this mess is going on, Nadim, a new character that's added just for the show, not anybody from the comics, a character that when he first showed up, I thought, okay, this is the part that's going to drag. And I end up loving this guy's storyline.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. But Nadim figures out what Dex is up to. He starts to kind of figure out what's going on. And that's starts to show us maybe how things are going to unravel by the end of the season. At least to me, I think I'm seeing where it's going, and I was pretty close.
Yeah, there's not any giant surprises in this show.
And Foggy's working his end. He's working the DA. He's running for district attorney. He gets up and gives that great speech in front of the policemen's union. And then near the end, he figures out what Karen is up to because Karen has gone to confront Fisk. And her bright idea is to get Fisk to physically assault her so that he'll have to go back into lockup or whatever and can't live in his luxury house arrest.
Not the best plan.
But also, I think it tells us a lot about Karen. I mean, she's ready to be a martyr for the cause at this point. You know what I mean? Like she is ready to take the sacrifice to expose him, not to spoil a beloved movie that some of the young folks haven't seen yet, but it's kind of like the end of what's that, Gran Torino, the Clint Eastwood movie. It's like she's trying to have her own Gran Torino moment. Hopefully you guys have seen that movie.
All of those kids watching the Gran Torino, you know how it is. They're just like, God, can I please see an 85-year-old Clint Eastwood, shout out at some Mexican kids? That's what I want to see.
Fisk is so like in control of everything that I wouldn't expect her plan to work, but man, she is pretty darn good. I mean, she's like 85% of the women I've dated. They can really manipulate a guy's head.
I think the two, like the big standouts for me is definitely, I think this is the most ensemble Netflix show we've had as well here. And that sounds crazy because you only have one man's name in the title here of Daredevil. But this season has really been heavy on Karen, which I like, and they've really developed that character really well. And with the Nadim storyline, is like you said, everyone thought that was going to be a heck of a slog, but you wind up really caring about this guy and what he's doing and what his arc is. And, you go through times of liking him and then disliking him and then, all that kind of good stuff. But it's a ride, even though we kind of figure out where everything is going. You don't have to be a genius to do that. It's nice to see that story unfold in front of you and done in a really good way. And especially with the Dean character, I really thought, like, for me, it was just going to be like, this is just some guy. And honestly, I think with the actor that they've chosen, the fact that he's not just a standard white guy, I thought it helped, like, a lot. I don't know. It gave me a better insight into this character, into his family and everything. It just seemed to work for me instead of just being very generic.
I feel like the actor was shocked that they wanted him to be in the FBI and not be the terrorist. You know what I mean? So good for him.
Yeah, and if you look at his filmography, he's had a lot of those roles, sadly. Of not necessarily terrorists, but, kind of like, this is where we've kind of put you.
Yep. Two more points I want to bring up. Then I want to take a deep dive into Karen's little flashback. But the first thing is, man, when Matt finally figures out that Sister Maggie is his mom, I felt terrible for taking that moment of shock away from Sean when we did the review of the first half. So I'm sorry about that, Sean.
Well, I was waiting for it, quite honestly, but it would have made me it would have made it worse if I would have gotten it for the first time watching the show, because that is the part of this season that I thought was just completely hokey and stupid. But I know it comes from the source material. I know that Frank Miller is the greatest, but I still find that just completely dopey.
And I may be wrong, but I think Frank Miller had her become a nun after she had the baby. But I could be wrong, because Frank Miller does do some messed up stuff. But I do like how what's his name, battling Jack Murdoch. I like how he had the chutzpah to actually make the moves on a lady in a habit. Like, even the Fonzie didn't do that,
Hey, I stay away from the nuns.
But yeah, she was already wearing like the habit, getting ready to take her final vows or whatever when he put her in a family way. So
it would have been interesting if we'd have seen
much for the nun, but it definitely doesn't say much for battling Jack Murdoch.
What happened if we would have seen like maybe 5 minutes before they walk into that fight? Like what's that conversation?
and then also, what if it just took a weird left turn and became Agnes of God and the second child was Matt? And then I don't know anything else about Sister Maggie being Matt's mom.
I thought the flashback love story I thought worked. I thought it was played really well. I liked the fact that they delved into like, hey, we didn't really know a whole heck of a lot about postpartum depression back then, and I thought that was
that's a smart move too.
I liked that a lot instead of making her a heartless jerk.
Yeah, that was really great. That actress also, I mean, not the younger version of her, but I think I even said this with the first part of season 3, is that actress is just terrific. She's so good.
Yeah. And, I kind of would have liked to seen maybe a little bit more of like the fallout with her and the convent and the priest and all that stuff. But then again, they also did it pretty well with her being basically catatonic when Jack takes the baby away. And you understand why he decided to tell young Matt that his mother died in childbirth, because in a way it's like the Obi-Wan version of telling the truth.
Exactly.
From a certain point.
But the next thing I want to bring is when Nadim finally figures out what Dex is up to, and he wants to take the high road and do the right thing, and he calls that meeting with his supervisor along with his some FBI partner or something. And then, man, she pulls out his own gun and shoots the guy in the chest. And you see that freak out moment that Nadim's having when he realizes how trapped he is. And this is really setting up some good, a good, tough situation for Nadim that you think is going to be impossible for him to get out of.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things that's smart about how they kind of played all this is they really They planted seeds everywhere throughout the entire thing and went back and then paid off everything that they did. And to me, that's one of the signs that a show is doing something right, especially when it's, something that's bingeable, that's putting in like, hey, here's 13 episodes. You can watch them as fast as you want. And as I'm sure that we've seen, over our years reviewing shows like this, you can really start to see where all the cracks are if you watch things super fast as opposed to, your traditional week-to-week programming. And here they don't have a lot of those cracks.
And this is also where we find out that Fisk has been behind everything for a very long time. And this is where we find out that like 2 years ago, Fisk had Nadim's sister-in-law's insurance canceled. Like Fisk had that kind of pull from prison. And that's what led to Nadim paying for her cancer treatments, which led to his bad credit, which led to him being in a vulnerable position in the FBI so that Kingpin could manipulate him. Now, on Chubby Wizard, Chris over there said he thought that was just a little bit too much, that's just like Fisk, having too much power, being able to predict the future a little too well. But I think that is Kingpin from the comics, so I like it. I don't know. Do you guys feel like Fisk was just a little too good at his master plan, or do you think it worked for you guys?
I liked it. To me, it shows that, and I'm sure that Nadim wasn't the only person that he actually had available to do something like this. It's just all the cards happened to fall right for this particular one, and that's the horse he decided to ride, so to speak.
For me, it's the fact that, yes, it is a bridge too far, somewhat, but you have to show that this guy is actually smart, that he plays the long con. Because there's too many times where he's wrapping people's jackets around their head and killing them, and not enough time where you get to see how smart this guy actually is.
And we live in a healthcare environment where you could have just believed that his sister-in-law's insurance dropped her because she had cancer, and that Fisk had that info and knew that Nadim was susceptible. You didn't have to have Fisk actually pulling, the insurance out from under her, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but again, it's just they do a lot of things, especially within this season, that it's just like, oh wow, you really decided to do that. Good job for you. And then, they took a couple of steps here, and I thought that was, sometimes when shows are a little too afraid to kind of go in on something, that's when you can kind of lose all care because you know that everything is safe all the time.
Now, the next episode that we go into is the episode called Karen. And this whole episode, which I thought was kind of a cool thing to do. I was really into this episode, but I didn't expect this whole episode just to be a flashback in Karen's life in Vermont. I thought it was going to be like the opening to the show, and then we go back to the main story. And they rode this out, and I'm happy for it because I really, really got a lot about Karen's character from this whole episode in Vermont. What about you guys?
To me, it's the weakest one.
Oh, really? Because I really like this one.
To me, whenever shows do this, it feels like it's going backwards instead of forwards. And I like forward momentum with everything. And I get that we need to know more about Karen. I totally understand that. But I don't know why you would dedicate 90% of an episode to this.
I'm with you, Bruce. I'm with you. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a good addition. But I see Sean's side as well, because part of me did just go like, oh, how long are we going to spend with this? But the longer that it went on, the more that I kind of liked it and everything. And I like to say this too. Comics are very much like this as well. You'll have a nice little run, and then all of a sudden it's just like, where did this issue come from? And then next week you're back on order, And
there's this whole question that's been looming from season 1, like why does Karen get blamed for the death of her brother? Why is that such a sensitive subject? And I like it when you have a denouement. Usually, it's at the end of a story where they answer all the unanswered questions and things, but this sort of served like that. It finally gave us the complete story to what happened with her brother, and I like that. So it's not just, sometimes it's cool to leave things vague and to have a little mystery there, but sometimes it's just like weak writing where you just want to say, yeah, there's this bad thing, but we don't know why it's bad. So I like it that they fleshed it out. But my next question, which will lead into some suspicions about myself as to why I like this, but out of the three of us, I would say, Sean, you're the most likely to have traveled much through Vermont. Have you traveled through Vermont, Sean?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Vermont when I was younger.
How about you, Adam?
I wouldn't be caught dead.
I've seen White Christmas, and that's all I know of Vermont until I saw this. Does Vermont really look like this, Sean?
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly woods, and it's lakes and woods.
A bit like the rundown diner, the little trailer that the guy lives in. Like, I knew that the character of Karen was from Vermont in the comics, but watching this before they spelled out she was in Vermont, I really wondered if they were going to make her from West Virginia, because my goodness, a lot of this looked like West Virginia. The drug problem, everything.
What you need to keep in mind about Vermont is that Vermont, while it's super, super liberal, there isn't a lot of suburbs. There isn't a lot of cities. There's a lot of people for sure. But for the most part, it's, people who, like, we don't have heat here. We cut down trees and we throw it in the fireplace.
That's why you need to know that heat is too much of a thing for other people to have. You do not need heat inside of your house.
It's a whole lot of that.
Bernie Sanders.
For me, I like to fancy myself, like lower middle class, growing up lower middle class. But when we would vacation in Vermont, we stayed in a very nice part of Vermont. We stayed on Lake Winnipesaukee, and so, there was like there's nice houses, there's nice everything. But if you go outside of the vacationing part of it, it does look a lot like this.
Because I can drive 30 minutes or less in any direction and find something that looks very much like where this was filmed. So I think I kind of related to it just from the familiarity of the small town kind of stuff. And not just like small town, but small impoverished town that maybe had an industry once that left and people are clinging and don't know how they're going to get by. Where I grew up was very much like what we're seeing here as Fagin Corner. Fagin Corners, unlike how it's depicted in the comics as a more idyllic little Vermont town.
And I like how they mentioned the Cisco truck, and I'm just like, ooh, you did a good job there, because that's an actual thing instead of making something up.
They had to pay Cisco $150,000 to say that.
I wouldn't be shocked.
And Adam, I kind of got the idea that you liked the frat party she was at too, where she was just in her brassiere.
It wasn't bad.
Giving girls luges of vodka on the ice.
First of all, like, didn't she have like 2 different liquors at that point? And I'm like, don't be doing that. That's like
asking for trouble.
Man, I'll
like
be
when
honest,
you're throwing a brown
and
a clear.
Attention to the liquor. There were 2 other things that caught my attention.
Yeah, but you put a brown. Listen, you're gonna pour booze in me. I'd like to know what I'm getting, and if you pour in a brown and a clear in together, you're looking for trouble.
And see, they needed that scene in the movie where Adam goes up to the luge.
Hey,
Page,
you get one or the other, not both.
he refuses to go through the whole routine with the lemon in her mouth and everything because he doesn't like her choice of liquor.
Well, that isn't the way it would go down, though, because what would happen is that the girl goes over, there's the brown liquor and the clear liquor going into her with the lemon and all that stuff. Adam, meanwhile, is at the party, but he's got 3 people cornered, and he's telling them how you do not want to be around that girl in about 20 minutes because she is going to have a bad time, and you don't want any part of that. Do you want to babysit this girl for the rest of the night? I don't think so.
Nope.
And then Bruce goes up to the luge, takes off his T-shirt, and he too is wearing a bra underneath, and then it really looks cool.
Then the party really begins.
And then, they give her the dirtbag boyfriend, the whole thing about Georgetown College that she's already deferred twice, and she's afraid to leave this town because her dad can't survive without her. But we all know the best thing for her is to leave this town. And maybe the best thing for her dad is for her to stop, like, propping him up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought all of it worked pretty well.
And if she hadn't been so wishy-washy about whether or not to go away to college, her brother would still be alive, too. But I really like that whole breakdown of things there at the end.
Totally worked for me. I want to talk about something that I liked in this that I thought was very kind of comic booky. Is I love Matt's discussions with people that aren't there. So with him,
I wasn't sure how I felt about this at first because it's not just Matt, but Matt does it the most. And I didn't know if they're trying to show that he's breaking up a little bit, or if they're just trying to present his inner dialogue in a way that works for the viewer. But it grew on me. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, in a world where we don't have, thought balloons and dialogue boxes and stuff as we have in comics, we still need to get some of that, just jargon out there. What's the word I'm looking for?
Oh, inner dialogue.
Yeah, just inner dialogue, or just being able to get things going and expository. That's the word I'm looking for. Just
exposition.
Exposition. Battle exposition, everybody. But just to get that exposition out without being boring and adding that in there. And I loved like the change between like his dad and Kingpin. I thought that was a really cool thing. I just thought that was all handled quite well.
And you know, it was interesting. At first, I think at first when it was happening with Fisk in the first half of the season, I thought he was looking back at his own childhood, and then I realized he's looking back at Bullseye's. And then there were a couple times when this happened, and I don't know if Matt's really losing his marbles or not. And it just started to kind of flow with it. But it was a device I thought maybe was a touch overused for my taste. I'm not a big fan of that sort of thing unless it's like a ghost story or something. But I won't begrudge anyone else for liking it.
Yeah. And I do like that there is the duality of both Kingpin is doing it and so is Matt. Like there's something nice about that, bookending the idea.
I kind of like this scene. Where Kingpin goes to talk to the lady who got the painting that his wife had given him as a gift, and he wants that painting back. And we find out that it was like one of those priceless things that the Nazis had taken from a Jewish family, and that it rightfully belonged, back with that family. That's a thing that happened in the real world quite a bit. And it's interesting, Kingpin really trying hard to get this, and just how brave that elderly woman is to stand up to Kingpin, fully knowing that, this might not end well for her. And then he kind of softens to it. And I don't know, did that humanize Kingpin too much? Did that work for you guys? Did you like seeing a little bit of softness in Kingpin that you're not seeing anywhere else with this character?
Well, he's got a soft spot for the ladies. And Leslie Ann Warren, what a surprise to see her in this, huh? Like, she's great. I love Leslie Ann Warren. And to have her playing this old person was a little shocking. But I guess those are the roles she gets now.
I haven't seen her in anything since Showgirls, so I was surprised.
I thought that was really good, but at the same time too, that's when you also, but like what that does then though is set up by the way, Bullseye just went and killed a Holocaust survivor. Oh my God, what? Jeez. Wow, I was blown away. I'm like, good on you, show. That's hardcore.
And Vanessa's return to America really brought a heaviness that I wasn't expecting to come with her, but I liked it. I mean, at first it's the typical, he's trying to shield Vanessa from everything. Kingpin is trying to shield Vanessa from everything. And then she basically tells him, look, I went in on the action. I am also going to be like your co-king of crime here. And they're really, really setting Vanessa up to be the female Kingpin, like we had in the comics for a while. Right. When Kingpin was away, Vanessa was Kingpin. And I can see her turning into that. I could see her being more vicious than Fisk even, because she probably doesn't have any second thoughts about getting the painting back, where you have that moment where Fisk is like, I wanted that painting to remain with her.
Yeah. I love that her thing is like, listen, I love it when you disintegrate a man's head in a car door jam. That's what makes me love you.
Yep, man. It's like Rudyard Kipling said, the female of the species is more deadly than the male. And how do you like that? A Rudyard Kipling quote that I pulled off the top of my head.
But tell me another podcast that does that for you, everybody. You won't find it outside of Rudyard Kipling Weekly. I may have made that joke on the show 5 years ago.
Oh, those guys are so good.
Let's talk. Speaking of the Kingpin, man, Vincent D'Onofrio could. I did not know that this was the type of Kingpin performance that I wanted, but it turned out to be exactly that. Because this is a role that could go way crazy, over the top, and somebody just chewing on scenery, and he plays it so laid back, but yet there is a menace to everything that guy does, and just his stillness is actually more scary than, him going crazy, Al Pacino over the top.
Is this the best Marvel villain out there?
Oh man, that's close, because I mean, man, the Vulture from Spider-Man last year. That's such a great character. Purple Man, such a great character. Loki, great character.
And I mean, it's odd too because and to a degree they're not wrong, but Marvel always got the kind of like, well, Marvel's got crap villains in X, Y, and Z, and in some cases they're certainly right, but in other cases, man, when they've got good ones, boy oh boy do they shine.
And the good ones. It's interesting that two of the people in that conversation, you can't mention the top 5 without Kilgrave and Fisk. I mean, it's just impossible. And I think that says a lot for the Netflix version that they have two of the best villains, because Netflix has never done the problem that Marvel Cinematic falls into time and time again, which we've called them out for, but where the villain is just the evil version of the hero.
Yeah,
even Black Panther did that.
But spoiler, for Luke Cage and everything, but I'd put Cottonmouth in that, even though we didn't get him for a full season. Cottonmouth was a great villain.
That's where D'Onofrio gets the upper hand in my book, because he's had it going for 3 seasons. So, some of that comes into play too, because who knows, man? Who knows if Cottonmouth would have kept our attention for 30 episodes?
Yeah, the funny part is we talked on the last episode about Charlie Cox getting too big, but that Mahershala Ali is the one that got like the right? real. Yeah, he got himself an Oscar. If you look at the new movie that he's got coming out with Viggo Mortensen, looks like he might be gunning for another one of these Oscars.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's just gonna keep murdering it every time, and like, I will trust me, you've got my ticket, all right. Don't worry.
Well deserved, man. A great actor, and I'm glad that some of the less favorable Hollywood traditions have fallen to the wayside with Mahershala Ali.
Good stuff from that guy.
He's not following up his Oscar win with a movie like Stealth,
right. Right.
Or Cuba Gooding Jr. following up his Oscar with that gay cruise movie, whatever that was called.
Yeah, that is a very good point, sir.
When Horatio Sands comes a knocking, you answer the door.
Well, I won't argue with you on that one.
I'm trying to remember, and I'm looking through his IMDb as you guys are talking here. I certainly haven't watched everything Vincent D'Onofrio's been in, but I don't remember a bad performance, even in movies that are bad. Like he's pretty good even in the bad stuff. Is he one of those actors who just has a terrible agent, or he just doesn't want to leave New York? What is the deal with him?
That's a good question.
Well, for one, I don't think that he's willing to. I put him in this weird little class, maybe not fairly, but I put him with Benicio del Toro, where he's not willing to do things other than the way he does them. I think that his performances are weird, and it works really well, but you can't make him the leading man in a rom-com. You just can't,
Very true.
I love Benicio del Toro. I think that he gives these great, quirky, crazy performances in bad movies, just like he does good ones. And I would put D'Onofrio in that same kind of category where, this guy is good, and people that get him are lucky to get him. I think he isn't out to make, $600 million per film or anything wacko like that. And he just really turns in the best performance imaginable. He's not going to do like Christian Bale and lose 300 pounds or go hit the gym every day for a year straight to get muscly. He's going to give you a doughy man's performance, man. But he's just unbelievable. He's awesome as Gomer Pyle. I like to figure that Gomer Pyle actually survived the military and became Kingpin.
I have a different version where that cat doesn't go nuts.
But I mean, when you think about the stuff that he's in, like, he plays Orson Welles and Ed Wood. He's that guy, the bad guy, basically in Jurassic World. Like he's kind of like his character in Men in Black, which is so great. These performances he's doing, you're right, they're all weird. But
he's totally wasted in Jurassic World. I'll agree with that. They wasted an opportunity.
And his strange performance in the new Magnificent Seven is just like, what are you doing in this?
Exactly.
It's so weird.
It is. It is very weird, like Bruce is saying. But he's always interesting. Like everything he does is interesting. And looking through his filmography, like I'll never watch the remake of Death Wish. I mean, why watch Bruce Willis in a wheelchair shooting people? Like, I'm not doing that.
I can tell you, you can feel safe in that. Yeah, you've made a good decision. It's not very good.
But I will watch Glass.
Oh man, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see that movie.
Oh, I cannot wait to time out how long Bruce is sitting throughout the entire thing.
It's gonna be a lot.
It's gonna be a lot. Dude, they're
man, he's still miffed he didn't get that Professor X role.
I don't know that he's standing in any of the trailer. I swear
A
to
whole
you.
lot of therapy sessions, man.
It's like
then they
it's
bring in
all-
the body double, put the green coat over him so you can't see his face, and then he
Right.
walks around.
The rain poncho. We need a bigger rain poncho so people don't know that it's not me.
Well, getting back on track here, Nadeem decides to send his family away to, sends them to Montreal so that they can fly back to somewhere out of the country where they have family. I can't remember if it was India or somewhere else, but, they have cousins that they can go stay with because he's going to testify no matter what. He wants to quit being the bad guy and to be a hero again. And of course, this leads to Nadeem biting the dust, which we kind of knew that was going to happen, right?
More or less, yeah. It was
Because
just
the
when
show
he
really
turns-
wraps up. If it turns into a courtroom drama for the final 3 episodes, people are going to want their money back.
Yeah, for sure.
And we get the big Fisk wedding, which, man, I loved the visuals of this Fisk wedding. I really, really like this marriage ceremony between Kingpin and Vanessa, and all the crime bosses, I guess, in New York are forced to go. And we even hear, I can't remember which one she is. She's one of the Italian crime bosses from the comics, but she says, who else would be forced to come to this wedding but us? And I'm loving everything about the wedding.
It's a lot like when you're a kid at birthday parties. It's like I've just invited all of your friends, but they're not really friends. They're just people that you associate with.
And,
Yeah, and I do like that they didn't just take the Wilson Fisk apartment set and like it's an episode of Friends where like, hey, let's just have the wedding at the coffee
in the
shop.
apartment.
It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you've got
exactly.
all of this money. What is wrong with you? Why would you just we just like home. We just like it.
But also around this time, Matt manages to get the fixer, the cleaner, whatever you want to call that guy. He finally, which I didn't think was going to happen. I had a little bit of trouble believing that he got all the information out of that guy that he got out of him. But he gets everything he needs to actually turn Bullseye against Kingpin. So that sets up this big 3-way showdown at the wedding where everybody wants to kill everybody. Bullseye wants to kill Kingpin and Matt. Matt wants to kill Kingpin and Bullseye. Obviously, Kingpin wants to kill both of them at this point, too. They're both more trouble than they're worth. And meanwhile, Foggy and Karen are having this big worry. Like, they don't want Matt to kill Kingpin. Like, that becomes the big moral question. Like, that is, it's not will Matt succeed. It's not will Kingpin destroy Daredevil. It's will Daredevil kill Kingpin or not? Like, that becomes the final crisis question that has to be answered to resolve this story. I don't know that I bought just how much Foggy and Karen were worried that Matt would kill Kingpin. I almost feel like they would think he was maybe doing the right thing to kill Kingpin. I mean, Karen just came off of a season where she supported Frank Castle wholeheartedly, so it's hard for me to buy this change.
Don't kill him, by the way.
perception.
I let that guy kill everybody. You're right.
Not to mention that if it was between Karen and Kingpin, I don't think she'd hesitate to pull the trigger,
No, you're probably right. You're probably right.
I didn't know how you guys came down on them making this the big question of the series. Ultimately, it plays out a lot of different ways, but what it comes down to, the final sort of question, the final conflict is, will Matt kill him or not?
I think it's more interesting than who's going to win between Kingpin and Daredevil. I think I do like the Mexican standoff of the 3 of them fighting. I think that's great. I do like the added thing where Daredevil is, basically protecting Vanessa. Like, I like those bits as well.
And I also like it when Kingpin turns into George the Animal Steel and body slams Bullseye through a table. I mean, that was straight out of, classic 80s WrestleMania 3 or something.
He's eating a turnbuckle.
Exactly. I mean, he really kind of turned into sort of a brawler there, no calm and collectedness.
Oh, they all are.
Through the coffee table.
Every one of them is there's no jabs being thrown. They're all haymakers. Everybody's just like, I'm going to punch this guy into the next dimension. You just watch.
And tell me if I'm wrong or not, but if I interpreted the fight correctly, it was Kingpin that broke Bullseye's back and not Daredevil, because in
That's
the comics
correct.
it was Daredevil that broke Bullseye's back.
Yeah, Fisk smashes him against the corner of that brick wall.
I wish he would have just picked him up over his knee like Bane did with Batman.
Now it's time for you
It
to
would look just as
die,
real.
Mr. Poindexter.
Then there's a French guy who shows up who's dressed as Bullseye.
And man, I love it. I love it. All the blood on the classic white Kingpin suit, because I've been watching this whole series wondering how in the world he keeps his white so white and no stains on there or anything. And then the blood just looks so good and striking against that. It's almost like the Grail suits, how good they look when they get blood in them on Punisher, which people, on Preacher, which people should check out. Preacher podcast. Some cool guys do that.
Professional.
But, I'm liking this final fight. And then, Matt gets Kingpin where he wants him, and he's ready to snap his neck, in the classic neck snap maneuver that all movies has taught me I should do if I ever have to fight a supervillain. But then he finally kind of screams at himself and takes his rope wrapped hands off, and then comes up with this whole deal that he has enough to send Vanessa away to prison forever, or Kingpin can just keep his secrets and go to prison and stay there. And I don't know, were you satisfied with that?
Look, it's a little bit better than, and we all have said that we kind of like the movie on the down low, but it's better than the Affleck Daredevil where he's just like, hey, look, you'll go to prison and you could just, what do you want to tell everybody you got your butt beat by a blind guy? Go ahead and do that, player. And that's as much as he's got. But at least with this one, it seems like he's got nice proper leverage, and of course in proper Daredevil fashion, it will surely, if and we got another season, would surely come back to bite him.
And I also if we get another season, Vanessa's the Kingpin. But I also like how much he hated himself for not killing Kingpin. Like, he's got his hands on his chin, ready to spin his neck, and then he can't do it. And he has that whole hatred of himself, like he has disdain, self-loathing that he can't overcome that small little bit of morals that he had. And thank goodness he doesn't pull a Christian Bale Batman Begins where I can't kill you, but I don't have to save you, and gets out of the way and Bullseye kills him. He didn't do that either, which I never liked.
Yeah, which is always kind of a point of contention for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
just real quick, we got two more things to wrap up here, man.
Oh, yes.
Because we have like a sort of a denouement where they're sitting in the bar and they decide to get Nelson, Murdoch, and Page together as a new group where they say that Karen Page is a better private detective than Jessica Jones,
or at least more stable.
The closest we get to a crossover with any other property, which kind of surprised me. I thought something would have to pop in here at some point, but they know what they got here. They know they got a winner, and they don't want to mess it up by bringing other people in, I suppose. But we have this video confession on the phone that Nadeem has made. And then Foggy throws out that a death declaration is like solid gold in court, because you have no reason to lie if it's your final testimony before you die, so that they don't have to prove anything. Like, that's all they need to convict.
I don't know if this is horse crap, but I'm like, this sounds stupid, and I like at least how you put it in there. I don't know if any of it's true, but God bless you.
There's no way that could be true, is there?
That sounds like the end of Tommy Boy to me.
Exactly, man. I don't see how that. I think it would be like the exact opposite. They're not available for cross-examination. You can't get them to give you more details. That the whole thing's totally thrown out in that situation. But no, I guess we all need to have our iPhones, and if there's somebody you hate, like, believe me, I've got this in mind. There's a couple of people that on my deathbed, I'm going to say they did all kinds of horrible things and hope that my death declaration gets them sent to prison.
I have a list of people that I think have wronged me in some way, shape, or form. Sit back, everybody. Here comes the list.
I'm ready to smite my enemies before I'm smote myself. And then we get this sort of teaser thing where Bullseye's getting a new spine. In Japan, it looks like, because in the comics, when he broke his back, he went to Japan where he got an adamantium skeleton from the doctor who invented the technique that was used on Wolverine. But this doctor was better at it than Project X was, so he didn't need to have a healing factor to survive. And they give Bullseye his own adamantium skeleton. So I guess that's kind of what they're doing here. Straight from the comics.
I'm okay with it.
I hope it's not adamantium.
Well, I'm sure that it won't be, because Fox, has all the adamantium, but they could make it vibranium if they want to. But he opens his eye, and his eye kind of glows like a bullseye. That was kind of cheesy, I thought, a little corny.
I was okay with it. Like, I knew what it was, and I get it, and it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to let it go.
Wait a minute. That guy's Bullseye?
Listen,
at least he didn't have a bull in his eye when he opened it. But so this season 4 that none of us think we're going to get. The idea is Vanessa's going to be the Kingpin. She's going to bring back Bullseye, and he's going to finally be called Bullseye and get a Bullseye costume made for him because there's no reason for him to be fake Daredevil anymore. That cat's out of the bag.
Here's the thing: we've seen him in that kind of form-fitting outfit and everything with the jaw hanging out. He could pull it off.
Oh yeah, man! I think it could be even crazier than before after everything's been through. Because Bullseye kind of needs to be a full-on lunatic to work.
Oh yeah. I would imagine getting your spine operated on and putting adamantium in it or whatever, it might make you a little bit on edge.
And the whole time that season 4 is going on in prison, Kingpin is begging Vanessa not to do it because he knows that she's going to go down just like he did. And he's begging her not to. So maybe Vanessa even has Kingpin offed while he's in prison.
Nah, that's a bridge too far. What are you talking about here? You're going crazy. And I'm sure everyone else has been going crazy, wondering how this program relates to one Sylvester Stallone.
Thanks, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Alex Zakrzewski directed episode 8, Upstairs, Downstairs of Daredevil. He's a solid choice. He's a longtime TV director. He hasn't stopped working since he was handed over the reins to the TV series Crossing Jordan, which, if you've never seen it, is about a medical examiner who fights crime. Alex has worked on more TV shows than Ted McGinley, except for when Alex Zakrzewski shows up on set, he doesn't signal the death knell of that show. Now, here's some of Alex's highlights. He worked on Hack, which is about a cabbie who fights crime. He worked on Knight Rider, a car that fights crime. Numbers, a mathematician who fights crime. And Hawaii Five-0, where the state of Hawaii fights crime. And now Alex Zakrzewski is one of the many directors of Daredevil, where a blind guy in a mask stares into the abyss, beats up people in hallways, jails the morbidly obese, and fights crime. The best thing about working with longtime TV directors is that they know who they are. The guy who directed 7 different episodes of Law & Order Criminal Intent isn't walking into this job thinking he's going to reinvent people's perception of Daredevil. He knows his role. Come in, keep the ball rolling, do a good job, collect a paycheck, move on to the next one. The problem is when a TV director comes in who has visions. You don't want the person who walks in and says something like, you guys have been doing a good job, but we're going to shake things up for this episode. That guy doesn't understand his job. And not a lot of people know this, but the guy who runs the set on a TV show isn't the director. It's the cinematographer and the executive producer, because one controls the look and the other controls the money. Now, there are exceptions to this, like when Rian Johnson comes in to direct an episode of Breaking Bad, he has the floor. When Quentin Tarantino directs an episode of Alias, he can do whatever he wants. But, and this is just an example, when you used to play the mom on a long-running sitcom from the 80s and you've never directed anything before in your life, and you're walking into a nighttime soap opera, which is 5 seasons in, which is a knockoff of a knockoff, no one is handing you the keys to the kingdom. So good on you, Alex. So imagine how wonderful it must have been for the crew on the TV show called Las Vegas when Alex comes in to direct an episode. Now, for those of us who have never seen it, which I'm guessing is 99% of us, Las Vegas is a TV show about the crime that happens in that town and the fighting of said crime. There's a story arc on Las Vegas which centers around a character named Frank the Repairman. That character is played by none other than Sylvester Stallone's biggest threat to his career, Sylvester Stallone. I've never seen the TV show Las Vegas because I'm not elderly, but I think it takes place in a casino, and probably every so often they end up at the Hoover Dam. And I'm guessing that the episode to watch is the Halloween episode when poop goes down at the Liberace Museum. Ooh. This is all me guessing. I've never seen the show. But there you have it, Jim. This week's Stallone connection. Now, bald editor guy and lady who got killed and thrown into the walk-in freezer, let's review season 3 of Daredevil and slowly all come to the realization that superhero TV shows will never get this good again, ever.
All right, here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. And while you're there, throw us a like, why don't you? We'd really appreciate that. Bruce, where does Daredevil Season 3 fall on the Robin rating system for you, sir?
Well, when I was trying to figure this out, I thought maybe this is a Dick Grayson. But when I asked maybe, then it's sort of like it can't be, because there were just a couple little things here and there. And I feel like early on in the show, I was too quick to give out Dick Grayson's. I agree with Sean that this is one of the best seasons, but I still prefer Jessica Jones, which maybe I need to rewatch, and I changed my mind. The first season of Jessica Jones really impacted me in a way a superhero show hadn't. First season of Daredevil was just so amazing to me because it was new. So sometimes it's hard to undo some of that. But I know that this is as solid a Tim Drake as you can get. I mean, this is clearly the best thing that Netflix has done since that stinker of Iron Fist and the 1-2 punch of Iron Fist and Defenders came out.
Fair enough. Mr. Keenan.
To me, this is the zenith. This is going to be one of those series and seasons that, 10 years, 20 years from now, if we're all still in a society and there is still a civilization and superheroes are still part of the discussion, I think this is going to be part of that discussion. So for me, it's a Dick Grayson.
I've been jockeying back and forth as I watch this series between your two grades, actually. But honestly, I think over this discussion and really thinking back about how I watched these this season, I watched this season in 2 sittings, and they were both on day of shows. And you know what? I was never bored. It kept moving, it kept shaking, and it kind of gave me everything that I really kind of wanted. And I'm looking and I'm scratching my noggin going, is there something that they've left out? Is there something that's not really cooking? And I can't really come up with one. It really kind of did everything that I wanted it to do. And I'll say this, if we don't have a season 4, I'll definitely be sad, but I'll tell you this, we had a pretty darn good 3 seasons out of this program, and honestly, they can't take it away from you, right? So I'm going to go Dick Grayson on this as well. I think there's no reason for me not to give this top honors because it's just that darn good. So that's it, everybody. 3 glowing reviews here. While the ratings may be down for people that are watching these things, and like you said though, Bruce, I think that there's a good chance that people are just not getting to it on time because of the glut of things that are out there. But they'd be duly noted to actually go out and watch Daredevil season 3 because it's pretty darn good. You know what else is pretty darn good? The people that support the show over at patreon.com/HMP, our executive producers of everything right now are Maria and Sirish. You guys are in at that $40 tier, and oh my goodness, I'm going to get some new prizes and stuff out to you this month, so do not worry about that. And all the people that came in at the $20 level, Tim, Matthew, Jim, Alex, Peter, RocketFace, and Robert, thank you guys all for coming in at that level, and everyone else that's come in. We'd really appreciate you guys helping support this show. And like I said, for the rest of the year, even if you're in at that dollar level, see if you like it, man. Dip your toes in the water. See if you like the little extra stuff we give you in the Dinger Zone episodes and all that kind of good stuff, man. We'd really appreciate that, and we appreciate all of you. Oh, also, you guys do get to vote on everything. Here's how the votes are working out right now. The options that you guys have to vote on this month are Captain America, A Death Too Soon, Bullet to the Head, 30 Days of Night, and Hellboy 2. And right now, we have a pretty close race here between Hellboy 2 and 30 Days of Night. Hellboy 2, 8 votes. 30 Days of Night has 7. So we're going to be coming back to this until the show actually happens. So if you'd like to cast your vote, head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Join up at any level and get all the exclusives for the rest of the year. Speaking of the rest of the year, we've pretty much got this year figured out because, man, oh man, do we have a lot of stuff. And you know what? I teased it earlier, but we're actually going to be covering the DC streaming Teen Titans. Or they're just called Titans, rather, right?
Just called Titans, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you have to hire 25-year-olds to keep them on set for massive amounts of time, I guess. So we'll be covering the first 2 episodes of Titans next week. In the meantime, Bruce, where might we find more of your work on the internet?
I've always wanted to have an omnibus. I went to the comic shops and I look at like a big Jack Kirby omnibus. I look at a Chris Claremont X-Men omnibus. Well, now I have Dragon Blinder, the Lump Adventures omnibus. It has the complete Lump Adventures in it. It's a digital omnibus because the print cost is more than I have the self-esteem to ask anyone to pay for. But the digital is not much at all. It's like $4.99, I think, something like that. It's not not a tall price at all. It's a good deal on the digital omnibus where you get all 3 books, the complete story. The people who have read it says it really reads well as a complete epic story like that. So I hope some folks will go, if you haven't dipped your toe into that world yet, go to Amazon.com, search for Dragon Blinder, pick that up. You're going to get a really cool, heartwarming story. It's it's 200,000 words, so it reads like one really long book when you get the 3 together, and I think it goes well that way.
And I don't want to discourage people from buying it and then printing it out and binding it themselves. There's a long lost art of bookmaking that we really have. It's gone to the wayside, and I think it needs to come back. And it may need to start with you. Get that Dragon Blinder omnibus, everybody.
Especially if you own a vintage Gutenberg press.
Oh, for sure. The Steve Gutenberg press is the best, Sean. Sean's dead.
I killed him.
Well, you can check out Hero Movie Sean on the tweets and check him out at dogeatpod.com.
Oh, geez, guys, I had mute on for a minute. Sorry.
We're just like, well, I guess he's gone. I don't know.
No. I haven't left. Yes, please. Hero Movie Sean on Twitter and dogeatpod.com.
He's over here cursing at us and we can't even hear him.
No, I was doing some work. Sorry.
Fair enough. And, of course, over at the Film Find, I did finish up my 31 Days of Halloween Horror Film Find 5s every single day for 31 days. I can't believe I made it. So thank you to people that listen to that. And of course, this week I'm going to have a huge reviews. I'm going to be talking about Mid-90s, the movie from Jonah Hill. I'm going to be talking about Suspiria, both the remake and the old one. The new movie from Tyler Perry. That couldn't be more different. And of course, Johnny English. There's about 5 movies I'm going to review.
Johnny English?
Yes, there are about 5 movies, and they all couldn't be more different from each other. So check out the Film Find. That's going to be coming out probably Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So check all that out at thefilmfind.com. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking a little bit of Titans on that DC streaming service. For Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
I'm Artie and Avie.